So today's exercise of insanity is I'm going to drop the rear fuel tank or pull it out. Details on removing that piece are in one of my other videos. We'll leave number 1 for F350 Fixes. And follow those because that's what I'm going to do. And then I think all that needs to be done is removing these bolts there and there to drop the supports on the bottom underneath the fuel tank, and then loosening the nuts that are up in here for the straps that run across the top, and then removing this, the filler tube. And then I believe it should just lower down out of there. I mean, obviously you don't want to loosen those without any support, because then it'll just kind of free fall into the ground and make a mess, I'm sure, if you've got any fuel in it. That's the other thing. Both of my tanks are fairly empty, and whatever's left in the rear tank, I'm going to remove that thing, and then put a hose and an El Cheapo power drill driven pump in there and pump the fuel out of there into my forward tank for the time being, and go from there. We'll see how this works. So I've taken off the bottom, what's in the thingies? The supports here. That's these ones. Went under about in that location on both sides. So now the tank is sort of free floating. It's captured a little bit around the edge. I noticed on the front passenger side that there is a little metal tab right there that is attached to the gas tank, and I had to shove the gas tank that direction carefully, minding the wires, to get that down below there, and it looks like it can just pretty much come out. And right now I have it supported by a jack, somewhat precariously, but I figured it's coming down and it's empty, so worst case scenario, it'll just take a dent or two on the bottom. No big deal. So I'll let it down and see how this goes. Okay, so only a minute has passed. Noticed that I was getting hung up here, preventing me from going down over there. Even though I loosened these, I haven't taken them all the way off, these top straps. But they were loose enough, and the tank being down a little bit, all I had to do to get them out on this end, upside down. All I had to do to get them out was, because they were in like this, I just had to rotate them. Oops. Obviously they wouldn't be moving this much. I just had to twist it like that, and then it came through, and I popped them both out. And I put them off to the side. I'm not doing this one-handed, so you can just imagine how this falls to the floor in a second. Okay, so it's out now. That was a little tricky because I didn't quite have it all the way empty, and yeah. So I lowered this side first. So I kind of, well, I was standing back here, had the jack kind of coming out this way, so the handle was over here so I could control it going down. And what I did is I had this side come down first, so I had to pull everything over this way to get the outer edge, the lip right here, to get that around this edge here. Then once that happened, I shoved it all that way, and then worked that edge down and out, and then the whole thing just kind of lowered with a twist of the wrist on the handy jack. The one thing that might have made this easier is doing that operation with a cherry picker and then just going straight down onto a moving dolly, which is what it's on now, because I had to set it on something rigid to get the jack out and then pick it up. I picked it up by the filler tube like so. It's not terribly heavy, even with a little bit of fuel in it. But lowering that end down, and my gauge is reading empty, and that was just replaced, so I don't know, it's probably not calibrated right, but there's still a fair amount of fuel in there, which is kind of unnerving because that means I could, in theory, drive on E for quite a while. I'd rather not have the surplus in there unknown. So, definitely pump that dry first. Take that out and pump it out like I said I was going to do, but then didn't. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. It wasn't too hard, except for in my truck, because I believe it was driven through a salting state at some point, even though I'm not in one now. These 4 bolts that were holding the bottom supports on were corroded like crazy. My impact wasn't getting them off. Focus. Yeah, so these are pretty well gummed up. They're rusted, corroded. This is a 15 millimeter. That's a 13 millimeter. I believe it was, yeah, in like this. So it was 13 on top, 15 on the bottom. And I had to use a breaker bar to get it loose, and then the impact could sort of, the impact wrench got 3 of these. The 4th one required some finagling and a ratchet wrench. I used this combination here, a 3/8, come on, focus, a 3/8 breaker with a 13 millimeter and a 1/2 inch with an impact socket. Deep well was probably unnecessary, but it did have to reach over this much screw. So, and without the spare under there, it was pretty easy to get to. Other than that, it was pretty straightforward. Not too bad. When I put it back together, I'm going to replace those with new bolts, because I'll probably reuse the washers because they're, reusable. But I'll make them American size because, that just makes sense on an American truck. So let me know what you think, if this helps. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, whatever. And, yeah. Let me know if you think I did it weird.